Hi, today we're going to talk about Google Sheets, which is very similar to using Excel, except it's cloud-based. So to make a new sheet, when you're inside your drive, you're going to hit the word New located on your drive. Here it's the nice red button. And then we are going to go to Google Sheets and select that option. And sheets are organized in columns and rows. So first we're going to talk about columns and how to navigate those. So our columns are labeled by letters across the top in Google Sheets. So here I have column A, and that extends down to the bottom of the sheet, column B, column C, and so on. So to see how many columns are located within our Google Sheet, if you're on a PC, you're going to push Control and your right arrow key. So if you push and hold that Control and the right arrow key, it brings you all the way to the last column in your Google Sheet. So our last column is labeled column Z. I can insert a new column in two ways. The first is I can go to the word Insert on the menu bar, and then I can insert a column to either the left or the right of whichever column I have highlighted. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to insert a column to the right. And you can see now I have column AA. Now I can also insert a new column row if I needed more than my initial 26 columns by hitting the down arrow located here. And then I get a drop-down menu. So from my drop-down menu, I can insert a column to the left or right. I can also delete a column as well that way. Or I can resize the columns, I can organize. So there's some added features by hitting that down arrow in the column title. We'll talk more about that a little bit later on. Then we have rows. Now rows go across your screen. So my rows are labeled by numbers in Google Sheets. So you have row 1, row 2, and you know those are selected when they turn blue, row 3, and so on. So you can insert rows in the same way. So you can either go up to your menu bar where the word Insert is and select that, and then insert row above or below your selected row, and you know which one's your active row because on the side you have that darker gray color, but you also have the blue. Or you can right-click on your row if you're on a PC. If you're on a Mac, you'll have to Control-click for that option, and then you can insert row above or below, or you can delete, clear rows, hide rows as well. So now what we're going to do is hold the Control key and the down arrow, and that tells us in our Google Sheet we have 1,000 rows to work with. So it brings me all the way to the bottom of the sheet. If I want to get all the way to the top of the sheet, I'm going to push and hold my Control button and the up arrow if I'm on a PC. Each box in a spreadsheet, just like in Excel, are called cells. So my first cell in a spreadsheet is called A1, and I know that the cell is called A1 because my A in my column is highlighted and my 1 for my rows is highlighted. And we always say the column name before the row name. So if you're asked to enter data in cell A1, this would be your active cell, and you know it's your active cell because you have the blue box indicating. You also have a formula bar located up here that you can type into as well. So here's the formula bar. So I can either type up here in my formula bar, so I could type A1 here, or I can be in my cell box itself and type here. I personally find it's easier to type into the formula bar, especially if I'm looking to change some formatting later on. So this cell here is A1, which would make this cell B1. And to move from cell to cell, you can either use the arrow key, you can use the return button right after you type and it'll bring you into the next cell, or you can use the tab key. Now the tab key will only move you in a right direction, so if you needed to go back left, then you're going to want to use those arrow keys to navigate. So this would be C1, D1, and so on throughout that first row. And then as I move over here, this is going to be cell A2, B2, C2, D2. So that's how you navigate the cells. So we're going to find the last active cell in our sheet. So to do that, we want to push and hold the Control and the right arrow key, and then push, while still holding our Control button, push the down arrow key. So our last active cell in our spreadsheet would be AA 1000. Okay, so now I'm going to take this information out and I'm just going to clear that by highlighting and hitting my delete key. We're going to talk about the entry bar. So I'm going to click in cell A1 and I'm going to type the number 150 in my box. And what you should see is my active cell has the blue line, as we already talked about, and it will also say 150 in my formula bar. Now I can use the delete or the backspace key to clear that out. And then I'm going to type another number and push the tab key. And then I'm going to type and I can take that out. And I can take that one out. And you can type anything into that formula bar. So you can type numbers, you can do labels or words if you were labeling a column or a row for a spreadsheet that you were doing. So if I was doing a spreadsheet on different daylight, I could have this be my month. I could have this be average number of daylight hours. For example, and then I could use my formatting, just like you would in a document, to make that bold and have that stand out. And I can see how this runs into cell C1. Well, I wouldn't want that to be the case, because if I try to type into C1, then look what happens. It cuts off my words from B1. So to get that not to occur, I can resize by being up here and where my column title is. And when you get the double arrow that appears, then you're going to click and hold. You'll get that blue line that comes down on the screen. And then you can resize your column from there, which is going to help things out. So I've made those column headings bold, and then I can type my months in here. And if I push the return button, it's going to bring me down to the next row. So we have January, February, March, April, May. So you're kind of getting a sense of how those cells function. June. So I can do these labels. July, August, September, October, November, December. And then I could have the average number of daylight hours. Now I don't specifically know what those are for the current year, so I'm just going to enter some numbers. I know that January tends to be less, and as we work our way closer to our summer months in New England, those get longer. So I'm going to kind of estimate. Maybe May is about the same. June's going to be longer. And they're going to start to get shorter again. So I'm going to go 7, 6.5, 6, 5.5, and 5 that way. So that's how you can set up a table that has labels within your spreadsheet. You can also rename your spreadsheet. So to do that, you're going to click on the small arrow. You'll hit rename, and you can make that a year. So I'm going to go with 2015 daylight data. And then when I push the enter or the return key, it's changed the name of that spreadsheet for me down at the bottom. If I needed multiple pages, I can hit the add a sheet button, and it will add a second sheet. So you can see down here I have sheet 2 located. If to rename my entire sheet, it's just like renaming a doc in Google Drive. So I'm going to select where it says Untitled Spreadsheet. I'm going to change this to either the name of the assignment that I'm working on. Remember, if you're submitting work to me, it's helpful if you do your username for your login so that it's easier for me to figure out whose document I'm looking at. But so for this, it might be our changing daylight sample. I'd hit OK, and then it changes my name up here. Now another thing about working in Drive that's really important to know when you're working in a spreadsheet is it doesn't save your data until you move to the next cell. So if I just entered the 5 here and I closed out my spreadsheet, it's not going to save this 5 for me. So you always want to make sure you move down to the next cell, either by putting your enter or return button, using your arrow keys, or your tab key. I know that all changes have been saved because Google Drive tells me that right up here. That is not the case when you're working in an Excel document. So one of the nice things about Google is it saves our work as we go. If we're working in an Excel document, then we have to go in and physically ask the file to save and save to the location that we're asking it to go to. So those are our basic features within Google Sheets. And then there's also some additional formatting features. But for today's purpose, we're just going over the basics. We'll do some additional tutorials later that will go over some of our more complex formatting features located up here. So I hope this was helpful, and we will learn more about Google Sheets and working within Google Drives and Google Apps for Education. Thanks for watching.